Hi everybody, this is Barry. I'm hoping to use this film to guide you through the second assignment for Unit 22, developing a computer game. So the first thing to do is obviously read the brief, but hopefully this will add extra information. So create a PowerPoint file, put your name in, give it the title of your game, and put in Unit 22 P3. In class, I was going to show you how we were going to build a maze game using Unreal. That's because it's the simplest thing for us to do. If, however, you want to develop and design, or rather design another game, feel free. But you must have the criteria in this PowerPoint file. So your first slide should give us the game title and a small paragraph explaining what the game is about. Perhaps yours might be a maze set in a jungle. It might be a maze set in ancient Egypt. It might be a maze set in an urban landscape in a city, and perhaps where the objectives are all slightly different. That's for you to feel free to invent. Okay, the first thing we have to put in is a plan of the first level of the maze. And here I'm using PowerPoint and I'm just using objects in PowerPoint, rectangles, spheres. The blue represents the path through the maze, and the brown circles and shapes represent a hazard, and the green circle represents a things we can collect. In this case, it's a transporter pad that will take us back to the exit. Of course, like an idiot, I haven't put the point of entrance and the point of exit in. Perhaps you can guess where they are. So remember to do that. On the next slide, I've put in explanations of what the hazards and the good things are. The good things are the artifacts, the things we collect. And I think the brief says we want 5 of each, 5 hazards and 5 things to collect. There, it says so at the top. 5 hazards and 5 rewards, coins, artifacts are needed. Okay, next, to show that we were going to design our own materials and put them into our game, we're going to show the materials, the textures for our maze. Because mine is a dungeon kind of maze, I've chosen some dungeon textures and I've given an explanation of what I did to them. And I also said I was going to put in a torch at intervals, because we could have done that in Unity using particle effects. So we want at least 3 textures. Then we're going to use textures for the things we're going to collect. I've sourced some green grass with my transporter pads, but I've made the other 2 textures very quickly and very briefly in Photoshop. And I've put in an explanation of how I'm going to use it. Okay, then we're asked for a game splash screen. What's a game splash screen? Well, it's the screen you see at the beginning of a game that tells you what the game is, who makes it. Here we have Hipster Whale, that's telling us who makes Crossy Road, and the splash screen on Subway Surfer is to keep us entertained while the game loads into memory. Then we're asked for our own splash screen. And very quickly, I hacked this together in Photoshop, but I'm sure you can do a much better job considering what you learned during the image editing, digital image unit, Unit 30. So there I've said what it's called, who's making it, and do I want to either play it or exit it. Then we have to create a flow chart that shows the players or the person's passage through the game. Now, I'm sure you must have done flowcharts with Dr. Mohammed and with Rawa, especially when you're putting a program together. But we're starting on the left-hand side where we activate the game. We go in, see the splash screen first, and from the splash screen, we can either exit or enter the maze. Then in the maze we meet a hazard, which if we beat it we can move on to the next one, or we go back to the splash screen where we choose to continue or exit. And we go on meeting hazards, or we meet perhaps something good like a transporter pad that will take us directly to the end of the game, and that's signified by that curvy arrow at the top. So again, I've used PowerPoint for this, and I've just done it very quickly. I'm sure you can be neater and a better designer than I am. And lastly, we put in the objects that we're going to collect in the game. We just need about, just go into depth for about 3 of them. You've listed the other 5 earlier in the slide, just show us 3 and say what they would be used for. Again, I've sourced this from the internet because we're now running out of time. We haven't got time to generate these ourselves. Okay, next slide. Now, save that PowerPoint file. That will be the evidence for P3, I think, for the Unit 22. The other P levels will come later on in the 3rd assignment. But for M1, if you wish to attempt it, put this as a report in a Word document and call it data types. And we have to look at the kind of data that is being used in a computer game. How the mathematics stores information about our computer game. Now, a lot of these terms you will have met before, hopefully with Rawa. These are all numbers apart from booleans and functions. A global variable is a number that is stored and available to every object and even every level in the game. It stores things like sunlight strength, wind strength, gravity strength, the color of the sky, things that are available to everything. Again, with a bit of research, you can perhaps find out how specific games or companies use these. Now, a local variable, that's usually associated with one particular object in memory. All our characters in a game, say, are really just objects in memory that contain local variables that the game program, the computer, interpret to give us the character on screen. These store information particular to that character. For instance, how strong the character is, how many weapons the character has, how much money they have, how healthy they are. So again, do a little bit digging and research on that. A Boolean, you must have met this with Rawa in programming. That is where you are given a choice, and they're usually represented by if-else statements. And there's an example on screen. If I'm killed by a monster and have no goblets, i.e. you've got nothing to save you, you go back to the beginning. Else, if I'm killed by a monster and have 5 goblets, I can drink the potions and survive and progress. Booleans are used an awful lot in games, all over that. And they're used a lot in programming, as I'm sure you know. Integers are a kind of number. They hold full numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. And these would be used for counting the amount of cards you have, the amount of coins you have, the amount of limbs you have, if that's going to be a point in your game. They're very different to floating point numbers. These are for holding decimal points or fractions, like 74.5 or 75.4. They're used a lot where you want something to slide smoothly across the screen, rather than jump across in discrete units. And a function, this is a function in JavaScript, Java, C, C#, most programming languages, where a collection of commands are collected under one command that you give a name to, that carry out a specific function. So for instance, a function might be called go back And once the go back function is called, it might do a list of commands like go back to square one, restore health to 0, remove all coins, and give the player a new hat. So it could have all those instructions inside the function. And the program just has to say, trigger go back, rather than trigger all of those individually. So now in the Unreal Engine, which we're going to use, we weren't going to be writing code, we were going to be dragging, dropping code from a huge list of commands, some of which would be integers, some of which would be booleans, some of which would be functions. So perhaps under this, you could mention the blueprint system in Unreal Engine. Again, do a little bit of your own research on these to beef it out. And finally, the instructions for D2 for this assignment are in the brief. And according to BTEC, an individual student should be able to do this, or should be expected to do this, without much help from the tutor. But you're asked to develop how you see the game developing in the future. And you need to talk about more levels, multiplayer ability, playing over the internet, playing for different platforms, how you could get people to design other levels for the game, or other maps for the game. I'm sure you guys know more about this than me. Perhaps some of you have even done it. There. I hope that helps as an explanation for assignment, what you need to hang in for assignment 2. You can always reach me by emailing me and talking to me on the Teams app or in the chat room during our classroom times. Is there anything else? No, I think that's it. I've also uploaded this PowerPoint to the VLE so you can use it as a template for yourselves. Okay, well done everybody. I hope you're all keeping safe and well, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. And I do hope it is very soon. Okay, take care everybody. Bye.